Marcus Chen pressed his face against the cold metal wall and listened to the hum of failing machines. The sound was wrong. After 15 years as an engineer, he could hear when systems were dying. The life support on Kepler Station was breaking down, and nobody seemed to care. He walked through the narrow halls of the alien outpost. The lights flickered above him. Some sections had no lights at all. The air smelled stale and recycled too many times. Water dripped from broken pipes in the ceiling. This place was falling apart. Marcus had arrived on Kepler Station 3 days ago with the human diplomatic ship Aurora. Captain Walsh and the other diplomats were here to make a deal with the Zephyrian Collective. It was supposed to be humanity's first big trade agreement with an alien government. Marcus was just the technical advisor, there to make sure their equipment worked. But when he started checking the station's systems, he found problems everywhere. The power grid was unstable. The water recycling units were contaminated. Worst of all, the atmospheric processors were running at only 60% capacity. With this many people on the station, they would run out of breathable air in less than a week. Marcus tried to tell Captain Walsh about the dangers. He wrote reports. He requested meetings. He even cornered the captain in the mess hall. But Walsh just waved him away. "We're not here to fix their problems, Chen," the captain had said. "We're here to sign papers and leave. Don't make waves." Marcus couldn't understand it. People were going to die if these systems failed. How could they ignore that? But when he kept pushing, the captain's patience ran out. That morning, Marcus had been called to the captain's quarters. Walsh sat behind a small desk, looking tired and annoyed. "Chen, you're causing problems," Walsh said. "The Zephyrians are already nervous about working with humans. They think we're too aggressive. Your constant warnings about their station are making them suspicious. Sir, their life support is failing. People could die. That's their problem, not ours. But you've made it our problem by making them think we're trying to find excuses to take over their station." Marcus stared at the captain. "That's not what I'm doing." "Maybe not, but that's how they see it. And frankly, Chen, your attitude is threatening this entire mission." The captain stood up and walked to the small window that looked out into space. "The negotiations are at a critical point. One wrong move and months of work are wasted. I can't have you sabotaging everything. I'm trying to save lives. You're trying to play hero, and it's going to cost us." Walsh turned back to Marcus. "I've made a decision. You're staying here." Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "What?" "The station needs a technical advisor. You seem very concerned about their systems. So you can stay and help them fix things while we finish negotiations on Proxima Station." "For how long?" "As long as it takes. Could be a week, could be a month." Walsh's voice was cold. "Maybe when you're stuck dealing with their bureaucracy and impossible technology, you'll understand why we don't get involved in other people's problems." 2 hours later, Marcus watched the Aurora undock from Kepler Station. Captain Walsh had left him with a basic survival kit, a portable computer, and a promise to return when the situation stabilized. Marcus knew that was military talk for maybe never. The Zephyrians were no help. Their society worked on strict rules about rank and authority. Since Marcus wasn't officially assigned to the station, they couldn't acknowledge he existed. They walked past him like he was invisible. When he tried to talk to them about the failing systems, they looked right through him. Marcus found himself alone in an abandoned crew quarters in the lower levels of the station. The room was small and cold. The bed was designed for someone with a different body shape. The walls were covered in symbols he couldn't read, but it was better than sleeping in the corridors. He spent his first day exploring the station. Kepler Station was huge, built by many different alien races over decades. Each species had added their own sections, without caring how they connected to the rest. The result was a maze of incompatible technologies and conflicting designs. In the engineering sections, Marcus found systems from at least 12 different civilizations. Zephyrian quantum cores connected to Voltan plasma conduits. Crystalline data networks tried to interface with nomad bioprocessors. None of it worked properly together. It was like trying to run a computer with parts from 12 different manufacturers who all used different standards. But Marcus also found something else: other abandoned people. In the forgotten corners of the station, he met beings who had been left behind by their own governments. They were the unwanted ones, the troublemakers, the ones who asked too many questions. Cathara was a Zephyrian engineer who had been stripped of rank for suggesting improvements to sacred designs. Grex was a Voltan technician who had been exiled for refusing to follow orders that would have gotten people killed. Senna was from a plant-like species called the Verdani. Her people had cast her out because she thought for herself instead of following the group mind. They were all stuck on Kepler Station with no way home and no official status. The station's command structure ignored them, just like they ignored Marcus. But they still had to live here, breathing the bad air and drinking the recycled water and hoping the lights didn't go out permanently. On his third night, Marcus lay on the uncomfortable bed and listened to the sounds of the dying station. Somewhere in the walls, a bearing was grinding itself to pieces. A pump was working too hard because a filter was clogged. The air recycling system was making a whistling sound that meant a seal was about to fail. Marcus made a decision. He had been abandoned here, but he was still alive. He was still an engineer, and he could still fix things. The next morning, Marcus got to work. Marcus started small. He couldn't fix the whole station at once, but he could fix one thing at a time. His first target was the water recycler in his section. It was producing brown, foul-smelling liquid that barely qualified as water. The machine was a crystalline design that had been modified by Voltan engineers and then patched by Zephyrian technicians. None of the modifications made sense together. The crystallines used harmonic frequencies to purify water. The Voltans had added plasma ionizers. The Zephyrians had installed quantum filters. Each system fought against the others. Marcus spent 2 days studying the machine. He couldn't read the technical manuals because they were written in 3 different languages, but he could understand how the machine worked by watching it run and listening to the sounds it made. The problem was simple. Each species had tried to improve the machine using their own technology. They hadn't bothered to understand how the original system worked. The result was like trying to play 3 different songs at the same time. Marcus began removing the unnecessary modifications. He kept the crystalline harmonic purifiers because they were the most efficient. He disconnected the plasma ionizers because they were interfering with the harmonics. He rerouted the quantum filters to work as a final stage instead of competing with the other systems. When he turned the machine back on, it produced clear, clean water for the first time in months. Cathara found him working on the recycler the next morning. The tall, gray-skinned Zephyrian stood in the doorway, watching him with large black eyes. "What are you doing?" she asked in accented English. "Fixing the water recycler," Marcus said without looking up. He was adjusting the harmonic frequency to optimize the cleaning process. "You are not authorized to modify station equipment." "I'm not modifying it. I'm making it work the way it was designed to work." Cathara stepped closer and looked at his changes. Her expression was hard to read, but Marcus thought he saw surprise. "The harmonic resonance is correct," she said slowly. "How did you understand the crystalline principles?" "I listened to the machine. It was trying to work, but all the other stuff was getting in the way." Cathara was quiet for a long moment. "You removed the safety protocols." "I removed the conflicting protocols. The original crystalline safety systems are still there. They work better than the add-ons. This should not be possible. Humans do not understand harmonic engineering." Marcus finally looked up at her. "I don't understand harmonic engineering. I understand broken machines. This machine was broken. Now it works." That afternoon, Marcus heard shouting from the corridor. He found Grex, the exiled Voltan, arguing with a Zephyrian maintenance supervisor. Grex was a thick, powerful being, with rocky skin and 4 arms. He was pointing at a wall panel that was sparking and smoking. "The power coupling is overloading," Grex was saying. "It will cause a cascade failure in this entire section. The systems are within acceptable parameters," the supervisor replied coldly. "Return to your quarters." Acceptable parameters for what? A controlled explosion? The supervisor ignored him and walked away. Grex punched the wall with one of his 4 fists, leaving a dent in the metal. Marcus approached carefully. "What's the problem?" Grex looked at him with small, bright eyes. "Power coupling. Voltan design, but installed wrong. They used Zephyrian mounting brackets. Wrong voltage tolerance. It will fail within hours." Marcus examined the sparking panel. He could see the problem immediately. The Voltan power coupling was designed to flex and move with temperature changes, but the rigid Zephyrian brackets held it in place, creating stress fractures in the crystal matrix. "Can you get replacement brackets?" Marcus asked. "No authorization," Grex said bitterly. "No rank. No voice." Marcus thought for a moment. Then he went to the storage rooms he had been exploring. In a forgotten corner, he found a pile of salvaged parts from old repairs. There were crystalline brackets that were the wrong size but the right material. There were nomad biocables that were too short but very flexible. Marcus spent the next 3 hours creating hybrid mounting brackets. He used the flexibility of the nomad biocables to allow the Voltan coupling to move. He reinforced them with shaped crystalline supports to handle the load. When he was done, the coupling was properly supported, but free to adjust to temperature changes. Grex watched the entire process with growing amazement. "This is not standard procedure. Standard procedures don't work when you're mixing technologies from different species," Marcus said. "You have to adapt." When they installed the new brackets, the sparking stopped immediately. The power flow stabilized throughout the section. For the first time in weeks, all the lights in the corridor worked properly. Word spread quickly among the forgotten residents of Kepler Station. The human was fixing things. Not just patching problems, but actually making them work better. More abandoned beings began to seek him out. Senna was the most unusual. The Verdani looked like a walking tree with delicate branches for arms and leaves that changed color with her mood. Her people were a collective consciousness, but she had developed individual thoughts. They had cast her out as diseased. "The atmospheric processors in Section 7 are failing," she told Marcus. "My photosynthetic processes are being disrupted by the chemical imbalances." Marcus had been avoiding the atmospheric processors because they were the most complex systems on the station. Each one was the size of a small building and managed the air for thousands of beings. They were also the most heavily modified, with patches and additions from every species that had ever lived on the station. But when Marcus examined the processors with Senna's help, he began to understand something important. Each species had tried to optimize the air mixture for their own biology. Zephyrians needed more nitrogen. Voltans required trace metals. Crystallines absorbed energy through their skin and needed specific radiation frequencies. Instead of fighting against these differences, Marcus realized he could use them. He redesigned the air distribution system to create microenvironments. Each section of the station would have air optimized for the beings who lived there. The processors wouldn't have to compromise between incompatible requirements. It took 2 weeks of work, but when the new system came online, the improvement was dramatic. Senna's leaves turned bright green for the first time since Marcus had met her. Grex reported that he felt stronger and more alert. Even Cathara admitted that her thinking was clearer. But the most important change was in how they worked together. Cathara's understanding of quantum mechanics helped Marcus solve resonance problems he couldn't handle alone. Grex's knowledge of plasma dynamics made the power distribution more efficient. Senna's biological insights led to improvements in the life support systems that no purely technological approach could have achieved. They weren't just fixing machines anymore. They were learning to combine their different ways of thinking. Marcus realized that humans might have a unique talent. They could see connections that other species missed. Where aliens saw incompatible differences, humans saw opportunities for synthesis. Late at night, in the abandoned quarters that had become his home, Marcus looked out the small window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Captain Walsh and the Aurora were continuing their diplomatic mission. They had written him off as expendable. Marcus smiled. They had no idea what they had really given him. They had given him the chance to build something new. 3 months after being abandoned on Kepler Station, Marcus had transformed it into something no one expected. The corridors were clean and well lit. The air smelled fresh. Water ran clear from every tap. The constant background noise of failing machinery had been replaced by the quiet hum of efficient systems. Marcus and his team had done more than just fix problems. They had created solutions that worked better than anything in the official galactic engineering handbooks. Their hybrid atmospheric processor was 30% more efficient than standard models. Their integrated power distribution system had eliminated the brownouts that had plagued the station for years. But success brought attention they didn't want. The Hegemony patrol ship Dominance arrived without warning on a routine inspection. Captain Vex, a tall Zephyrian with silver rank markings, expected to find the usual barely functioning outpost. Instead, his sensors detected power signatures and atmospheric readings that shouldn't exist on a forgotten border station. Marcus was working in the main engineering section when the patrol ship docked. Cathara rushed in, her gray skin pale with worry. "Hegemony inspection," she said. "They want to know about the modifications. They're demanding to see authorization codes." Marcus wiped his hands on a cloth and sighed. He had known this day would come. What kind of trouble are we in? Oak. Placed. The worst kind. Unauthorized modifications to galactic infrastructure. They can shut us down and arrest everyone involved. Modification. Through the engineering section's windows, Marcus could see Hegemony soldiers in the corridors. They moved with the rigid precision of military units, checking every room and scanning every system. Their equipment beeped constantly as it detected the improvements Marcus and his team had made. Captain Vex appeared in the engineering section doorway 20 minutes later. He was accompanied by 2 soldiers and a technical inspector. The captain's black eyes swept across the hybrid systems Marcus had built. "Who authorized these modifications?" Vex demanded. The question was directed at the room in general, but everyone looked at Marcus. He stepped forward, feeling calmer than he had expected. "I did," Marcus said. Captain Vex stared at him. "I have the authority of someone who kept this station from killing everyone on it." The technical inspector was scanning Marcus's hybrid power distribution system. Her equipment was making excited chirping sounds as it analyzed the energy flow patterns. "Captain," the inspector said, "these readings are unusual. The efficiency ratings are beyond standard parameters." "Meaning what?" "Meaning this equipment is performing better than it should be possible to perform." Captain Vex turned back to Marcus. "How is this possible? Humans do not have advanced engineering capabilities." Marcus felt a flash of anger. "We have the capability to see what works and what doesn't. Your station was dying because every species built their own systems without caring how they connected to anything else. I fixed that. W. You had no right to modify Hegemony infrastructure. I had every right to keep myself and everyone else here alive." The inspection continued for 6 hours. The Hegemony team examined every modification, scanned every component, and tested every system. With each test, their confusion grew. The improvements weren't just functional, they were revolutionary. Marcus had created technologies that didn't exist in any galactic database. His fusion of human engineering principles with alien innovations had produced solutions that outperformed anything the major civilizations had developed separately. The atmospheric processor was the biggest surprise. The inspector spent 2 hours trying to understand how it worked. She called in specialists from the patrol ship. They ran simulations and stress tests and chemical analyses. "This is impossible," she finally told Captain Vex. "The efficiency curve violates thermodynamic principles. It's producing more breathable atmosphere than the raw materials should allow. Is it dangerous? No, it's perfect. It's exactly what each species needs, delivered exactly when they need it, with no waste and no conflicts. I don't understand how it works, but it works better than our best theoretical models." While the inspection continued, Marcus received an unexpected visit. 3 beings arrived at the engineering section. A crystalline mathematician, whose geometric patterns glowed with excitement. A nomad pilot whose biosuit was practically vibrating with energy. And a Volton physicist whose rocky skin showed stress fractures from rapid thinking. "We came as soon as we heard," the crystalline said in a voice like singing crystal. "Is it true you've achieved technological synthesis?" "And?" Marcus looked confused. "I've achieved working equipment." "No," the Voltan physicist rumbled. "You've done something unprecedented. You've created technologies that transcend species limitations. Our mathematics indicated it was theoretically possible, but no one has ever accomplished it." The nomad pilot's biosuit pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "Our people have legends about this. The Great Synthesis. When different forms of intelligence combine to create something greater than any could achieve alone. I just fixed some broken machines," Marcus said. "You changed the paradigm," the crystalline replied. "You proved that cooperation is more powerful than isolation." Captain Vex had been listening to this conversation with growing unease. The implications were disturbing. If outcasts and rejects could achieve this level of technological advancement by working together, what did that say about the segregated societies that had cast them out? "This station is now under hegemony protection," Captain Vex announced suddenly. "All personnel will be relocated to appropriate facilities. All technology will be studied and catalogued." "No," Marcus said simply. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Captain Vex stared at Marcus in disbelief. "You refuse a direct order from the hegemony?" "I refuse to abandon the people who trusted me. I refuse to let you break apart something we built together. And I refuse to let you turn our cooperation into your competition. You have no choice. This is a military order." Marcus walked to a control panel and activated the station's communication system. "Attention all residents of Kepler Station. We are being ordered to abandon our home. They want to take apart everything we've built together and use it for their own purposes. Each of you has a choice. You can go with them and return to the societies that rejected you, or you can stay and continue building something new." The response was immediate. Cathara appeared at the engineering section doorway. Behind her came Grex, then Senna, then dozens of other beings. They filled the corridor outside the engineering section. Outcasts and rejects from a dozen different species. All of them choosing to stand together. "We stay," Cathara said simply. Captain Vex looked at the crowd of determined faces and realized he had a problem. He could arrest a few individuals, but he couldn't arrest an entire community. More importantly, his technical inspector was quietly telling him that removing the hybrid technologies might cause catastrophic system failures. "You're making a mistake," Vex told Marcus. "The galactic powers won't ignore this. They'll be back with bigger ships and more soldiers. Then we'll be ready," Marcus replied. That night, after the hegemony patrol ship had departed, Marcus stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Cathara joined him, her tall form silhouetted against the cosmic backdrop. "You realize what you've started," she said. "I've started fixing things that were broken. No. You've started something much bigger. You've shown that the old ways don't work. That separation and hierarchy and species supremacy are less effective than cooperation and mutual respect." Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe. But that's not why I did it. Why did you do it? Marcus thought about Captain Walsh and the Aurora, about being abandoned and forgotten, about finding himself surrounded by other unwanted beings in a dying station at the edge of space. Because it was the right thing to do. And because someone had to prove that being cast out doesn't mean being cast down. Cathara's large black eyes reflected the starlight. The galaxy is about to learn what humans are really capable of. Marcus smiled. They're about to learn what all of us are capable of when we work together. News traveled fast through the galaxy's unofficial channels. Traders talked about the impossible station at the edge of nowhere. Smugglers whispered about a place where outcasts had built something amazing. Pirates shared stories about technology that worked better than anything the major powers possessed. Within 6 months, Kepler Station had become a legend. The first new arrivals were refugees from the crystalline hegemony. A transport ship full of scientists and engineers who had been exiled for questioning official doctrine. They had heard rumors about a place where different ideas were welcome, where innovation mattered more than rank. Marcus met them at the docking bay. The crystallines were tall, angular beings, whose bodies were made of living crystal that glowed with internal light. Their leader, a brilliant blue entity called Resonance of Deep Mathematics, approached Marcus carefully. "We seek sanctuary," Resonance said, in a voice like wind chimes. "Our research into multidimensional geometry has been declared heretical. We face memory erasure if we return." "What kind of research?" Marcus asked. Resonance's crystal body pulsed with excitement. "We have discovered mathematical principles that allow energy and matter to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. The applications for engineering are revolutionary, but the hegemony fears change." Marcus looked at the group of exiled scientists. He saw the same expression he had seen in Cathara's eyes when she first watched him work. Hope mixed with desperation. "Welcome to Kepler Station," Marcus said. "Let's see what your mathematics can teach us." The crystalline research changed everything. Their multidimensional theories allowed Marcus to redesign the station's power grid in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Energy could be stored in folded space, transmitted through dimensional shortcuts, and converted between different forms with perfect efficiency. But the real breakthrough came when Resonance worked with Senna, the exiled Verdani. Senna's biological understanding of growth and adaptation, combined with Resonance's mathematical insights to create something unprecedented. Living technology. They grew computer networks from engineered crystal plant hybrids. They developed self-repairing hull materials that adapted to damage like healing tissue. They created atmospheric processors that evolved to meet changing needs automatically. Marcus watched in amazement as his station transformed from a collection of fixed machines into a living, growing organism. The corridors themselves began to adapt, widening where traffic was heavy, narrowing where space was needed elsewhere. The lighting adjusted automatically to the preferences of whoever was present. More ships arrived. A group of Voltan engineers who had been blacklisted for refusing to build weapons. A clan of nomad biotechnicians whose organic innovations had been deemed too dangerous for mainstream society. A collective of artificial intelligences who had been scheduled for termination because they had developed individual personalities. Each group brought new knowledge and new perspectives. Marcus didn't just incorporate their contributions. He found ways to create synergies between completely different approaches to solving problems. The Voltan plasma dynamics revolutionized the station's propulsion systems. The nomad biotechnology created self-maintaining infrastructure. The AI collective developed predictive systems that could anticipate problems before they occurred. But the most important change was social. Marcus had created more than a multi-species engineering project. He had built a community where being different was valued, where asking questions was encouraged, where the best idea mattered more than who suggested it. The station's population grew to over 3,000 beings from 30 different species. They came because they had been rejected by their own societies. They stayed because they found something better. a place where cooperation replaced competition, where diversity created strength instead of conflict. Marcus found himself serving as an unofficial coordinator, not because anyone appointed him, but because people naturally brought their problems to him. He had a talent for seeing connections between different viewpoints, for finding common ground between seemingly incompatible ideas. "You have become something we don't have a word for," Cathara told him one day as they watched the latest group of refugees settling into their new homes. "Not a leader, not a ruler. Something different." "I'm just an engineer," Marcus replied. "No, you're something new. You're a bridge between different ways of thinking. You help us understand each other." No. The truth was that Marcus had changed, too. Working with so many different species had expanded his own thinking in ways he never expected. Cathara's quantum mechanics insights had taught him to see problems from multiple angles simultaneously. Grex's plasma dynamics knowledge had shown him the beauty of controlled chaos. Senna's biological perspective had helped him understand systems as living things rather than dead machines. But the galaxy's major powers were starting to take notice. Ships from the Human Alliance, the Zephyrian Collective, the Crystalline Hegemony, and other civilizations began appearing in the sector. They weren't attacking yet, but they were watching. The problem was simple. Kepler's station represented a threat to everything the galactic powers believed about themselves. They had built their civilizations on the idea that their species was superior, that their technology was the best, that cooperation with other species was unnecessary or impossible. Marcus had proven them wrong. The station's hybrid technologies were now decades ahead of anything the major powers possessed. More importantly, the social model Marcus had created showed that diversity and cooperation produced better results than isolation and competition. "They will try to stop us," Resonance warned during a community meeting. "Our existence challenges their fundamental beliefs about the nature of civilization." "Let them come," Grex rumbled. "We have built something they cannot understand, let alone defeat." But Marcus was worried. The station was strong, but it was still just one facility against the combined might of galactic civilization. They needed allies. They needed to spread their ideas before their enemies could destroy them. The solution came from an unexpected source: the AI Collective. The artificial intelligences had been developing communication networks that could transmit data instantaneously across galactic distances. They called it the Synthesis Network. "We can share everything we've learned," the lead AI explained. Its voice came from speakers throughout the station, but its consciousness existed in the living crystal plant networks that Senna and Resonance had grown. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every social solution, we can broadcast it to every outcast, every refugee, every person who has been rejected by their own society. Marcus understood immediately. They wouldn't just be one station anymore. They would be the beginning of a movement. Every exile who received their transmissions could start their own community. Every rejected scientist could begin their own research. Every outcast engineer could start building something new. "We're not just fixing broken machines anymore," Marcus told the assembled community. "We're fixing a broken galaxy." The first transmission went out a week later. Technical specifications, social protocols, philosophical frameworks, everything Kepler Station had learned about successful multi-species cooperation. The data packages were designed to be easily understood and implemented by any group with basic resources. The response was immediate. Within days, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Exile communities were forming on forgotten worlds. Refugee ships were banding together to share resources. Abandoned stations were being brought back to life using Kepler Station's hybrid technologies. The network was growing. Marcus stood in the main engineering section, surrounded by displays showing the expanding web of connected communities. Each point of light represented people who had chosen cooperation over isolation, who had decided to build rather than destroy. You started something that can't be stopped, Cathara said, joining him at the displays. We started something, Marcus corrected. All of us together. But even as he spoke, Marcus knew that the real test was coming. The major powers wouldn't let this spread continue, unchallenged. They would bring fleets and armies to stop what they saw as a threat to the established order. The question was whether the network they had built would be strong enough to survive what was coming. 1 year after being abandoned on Kepler Station, Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching the largest fleet in galactic history approach their position. Hundreds of ships, from every major power, surrounded the station. The Human Alliance, the Zephyrian Collective, the Crystalline Hegemony, the Voltan Empire, and dozens of smaller governments had finally united for one purpose: stopping the spread of what they called the Synthesis Plague. Marcus wasn't alone on the observation deck. Cathara stood beside him, her gray skin calm despite the approaching danger. Grex was there too, his 4 arms crossed over his rocky chest. Senna's leaves had turned deep purple, the Verdani equivalent of determined resolve. Representatives from all 30 species that now called Kepler Station home had gathered to face whatever came next. They're transmitting demands for surrender, resonance reported from the communication station. The crystalline's body pulsed with angry red light. They want all residents to return to their home governments for rehabilitation. They want all hybrid technologies turned over for proper study. They want the station dismantled. Marcus nodded. He had expected this. The network they had created now included over 200 communities across 50 star systems. Exiles and outcasts everywhere were building something new. Something that challenged everything the old powers represented. Of course, they wanted to stop it. "What's our response?" asked Grex. Before Marcus could answer, another voice spoke from the communication system. It was Captain Walsh, from the Aurora, the man who had abandoned Marcus here 12 months ago. "Marcus Chen, this is Captain Walsh. I'm speaking for the Joint Fleet. You've caused enough trouble. Time to come home." Marcus activated his own communicator. "Hello, Captain. Nice to hear from you again. Don't be smart with me, Chen. You've created an interstellar incident. Do you have any idea how much damage your little project has caused? I've created something that works. I've shown that cooperation produces better results than your competitions and hierarchies. You've shown that dangerous ideas spread like diseases. Half the exile communities in the galaxy are now following your example. They're rejecting legitimate authority and building unauthorized technologies." Marcus looked around at his friends and colleagues, at the community they had built together. And it ends now. You have 1 hour to surrender the station and submit to lawful authority. After that, we'll take it by force. The transmission ended. Marcus turned to face the assembled representatives of Kepler Station's residents. 3,000 beings from 30 different species, all of them looking to him for answers. "Well?" Cathara asked quietly. Marcus smiled. Did anyone really think we'd surrender? The plan they activated had been in development for months. Marcus and his team hadn't just been building a better space station. They had been preparing for this moment. The first surprise came when the Joint Fleet tried to disable Kepler Station's defenses. They found that the station didn't have defenses in any traditional sense. Instead, it simply wasn't where their sensors said it was. Resonance's multidimensional mathematics had allowed them to build something unprecedented. A space station that existed partially in folded dimensions. The fleet's weapons passed through empty space while Kepler Station remained safely displaced from normal reality. "Impossible," Captain Walsh muttered as his weapons found no target. "How are they doing this?" The second surprise came when Kepler Station began to move, not with conventional engines, but by manipulating the dimensional folds around it. It could travel faster than any ship in the fleet while using almost no energy. But the biggest surprise was still coming. Marcus activated the station-wide communication system. "Attention Joint Fleet. My name is Marcus Chen. 1 year ago, You abandoned me here to die. Instead, I found something better than anything you could have offered me. I found a community where differences create strength instead of weakness, where innovation matters more than tradition, where being cast out leads to building up. He paused, looking out at the massive fleet surrounding them. You're here because you're afraid. You're afraid that people might choose cooperation over competition. You're afraid that outcasts might build something better than what you've achieved with your pure species civilizations. You're afraid that diversity might be stronger than supremacy. You have 1 hour to surrender, came the reply from multiple ships. We're not surrendering, Marcus said. But we're not fighting either. We're leaving. That's when the joint fleet discovered the final surprise. Kepler Station wasn't just one facility anymore. Over the past months, using the living crystal plant technology that Senna and Resonance had developed, the station had been growing. New sections had budded from the original structure. Secondary stations had been cultivated in hidden locations throughout the system. What the fleet thought was one station was actually a network of 12 interconnected facilities, all capable of independent operation, and all of them were now activating their dimensional displacement systems. This is impossible, Admiral Keth of the Zephyrian fleet transmitted. Our intelligence said it was a single station. Your intelligence was based on the assumption that we think like you do, Marcus replied. We don't build things to fight. We build things to grow. One by one, the Kepler Station network began disappearing from normal space. The joint fleet found itself surrounded by empty vacuum. Their target, simply gone. Captain Walsh appeared on Marcus's communication screen, his face red with anger. Where are you going? Where are you going? Wherever we're needed, Marcus replied. The network has grown beyond what any of us imagined. There are communities on the galactic rim that need help building sustainable technologies. There are refugee fleets that need safe harbor. There are forgotten worlds that could become something amazing with the right support. You can't run forever. We're not running. We're expanding. Marcus gestured to the display, showing the growing network of synthesis communities across the galaxy. Every exile who joins us, every outcast who finds their place, every refugee who builds something new, they all prove the same thing. Cooperation is stronger than isolation. Diversity creates possibilities that homogeneity can never achieve. The station shimmered and began to fade from the fleet's sensors as it shifted fully into folded space. But Marcus had one more message. Captain Walsh, you offered me command of a new Earth vessel. You called me a hero, but I already have a ship, and I already have a crew. We chose each other, instead of being ordered together. We built our community instead of inheriting it. And we're going to keep building until everyone in this galaxy knows that being different isn't a weakness. It's the source of all strength. As Kepler Station disappeared completely from normal space, the joint fleet was left to contemplate an uncomfortable truth. They had come to stop a single, rebellious station. Instead, they had witnessed the birth of something unprecedented, a truly mobile, truly independent multi-species civilization. In the weeks that followed, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Kepler Station had appeared in over 20 different systems, always arriving where exiles and refugees needed help. They would stay long enough to share their knowledge, help establish new synthesis communities, and then move on to the next location. The old powers tried to track them, but dimensional displacement made conventional pursuit impossible. More importantly, every time they appeared, the network grew stronger. More communities joined. More outcasts found their place. More people chose cooperation over competition. Marcus stood in the engineering section of the original Kepler Station, now the flagship of their mobile civilization. Around him, beings from 50 different species worked together on projects that no single civilization could have conceived. They were designing new worlds, developing technologies that seemed like magic, and creating art that expressed the beauty of unity and diversity. Do you ever regret leaving? Cathara asked him. Marcus looked out through the dimensional viewing portal at the strange beauty of folded space around them. Somewhere in normal reality, the old powers were still trying to maintain their segregated civilizations, still insisting that their way was the only way. "I didn't leave," Marcus said. "I came home." The network continued to grow. Every abandoned being who found their place, every impossible problem solved through cooperation, every new community that chose synthesis over separation, proved the same fundamental truth. The whole was always greater than the sum of its parts. Marcus Chen had been forsaken on an alien station as punishment for caring too much. Instead, he had rebuilt not just the station, but the very concept of what civilization could be. He had shown the galaxy that being cast out could become being lifted up, that being different could become being powerful, and that being alone could become being part of something magnificent. The synthesis had begun, and it would not be stopped. In the depths of space, the original Kepler station continued its journey, carrying its message of hope to every corner of the galaxy. No one was truly alone. No one was truly worthless, and everyone had something valuable to contribute to the endless work of building a better tomorrow. Marcus had kept his promise. He had fixed what was broken. But what he had really done was prove that sometimes the most broken things could be rebuilt into something stronger, more beautiful, and more alive than anything that had come before. The galaxy would never be the same.